And we are live again for the second time today. What's going on, crypto warriors, and welcome back to the Gentlemen of Crypto. Today we have a very special guest. We have Jack Sidhu here from Syscoin. He is the co-founder and CEO and lead core developer. Excuse me, he's the foundation president and lead core developer for Syscoin. And of course, we told you about this at today's show. Will be happening to make sure you all call in so you can ask him plenty of questions about the project and where are the updates going on these days. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Jack.
For having me, man.
How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, it's been actually quite a while since my last AMA, so there's been a lot of new information for the community, I guess, that I'd love to hear from myself and maybe some of the other people on our team.
And oh, you got a notification too, just let you know you can D&D that. But also the I will say for the new people here, you know, we have a lot of new people on our channel who literally just joined the cryptocurrency space this year, last year. Syscoin, as I mentioned earlier, is more of an OG coin. You all have been around since 2014, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think early R&D started around 2013, and then it got released 14, 15, and yeah, and then there was a public company that got formed, Blockchain Foundry, that's just kind of like a uh, I guess you can consider it like consensus in Ethereum and Blockstream of Bitcoin. We have Blockchain Foundry and Syscoin, so it's like a public company listed on the stock exchange that's consensus, protocol, wallet development, and Syscoin R&D mostly.
Ooh, there's a lot going on. So as far as Syscoin itself, for those new people, can you tell them what the Syscoin project is? What are you all doing? You know, what are the updates coming? Like, give us a scope of what the project is here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to do an elevator pitch because there's just a lot of things going on. I guess you can consider it the next, I guess, iteration of Web 3.0. Um, a lot of what we've been focusing on since the beginning has been scale and security, and without sacrificing security, achieving scale. And that's almost an impossible problem to solve because then you have the trilemma that gets affected. And we started out in 2014, 15, focusing more on business initiatives on the blockchain, like identities, marketplaces, escrow systems with data right on the blockchain. So we were forked off of Bitcoin and we were merge mining with Bitcoin, meaning we're sharing the security of Bitcoin and we we're adding new protocol level smart contracts on our platform. And these were hard coded smart contracts. And we quickly found that it doesn't really scale that way by throwing all that data. The critical pieces of information that needs to be on the blockchain is really just around the value and the payment settlements, and systems should be derived off of that. So as we iterated, we became more of an asset platform, a very secure asset platform, similar to ERC20. We call our tokens SBT, Syscoin Platform Tokens. So NFTs and normal ERC20 like tokens. Now these are different tokens. They're UTXO based. So I guess if you've heard of Cardano, they're focusing on a UTXO model like Bitcoin. You get higher throughput, higher scalability attributes, and lower cost of storage. And so overall, it's a little bit more secure and fast to do these things. Now, you only want to, there's caveats there, the way that ADA is doing it with smart contracts. I don't particularly agree with that design. I think UTXO, like Bitcoin, very efficient for payments, right? If you have a Lightning Network's off-chain system where, Bitcoin is serving as like almost like a repudiation layer, like a court system where people are off of the blockchain. Like you'll have Jack of Twitter creating systems off of Bitcoin for payments, for tipping each other, for sending tweets. Those are off of the blockchain, right? But you're receiving money and you don't really need to touch Bitcoin unless you, for some reason, need to settle up long term, right? And so those payments are P2P, right? You can do billions and billions of transactions without touching the blockchain. That's why we focused on UTXO first. Then,
Yeah, so I would say this, getting away from all the technical stuff, because like I said, it is a lot of new people as well. So something else is definitely going to confuse them. What I know they're going to ask, and the chat is starting to fill up, so folks, feel free to ask questions. AMA, ask me anything. My question is, I guess when it comes to community building, what has been the challenge with building your all's community? And granted, I do remember back in 2016, Syscoin at a moment was a talk of the town, one of those deals. But since then, we were talking today about meme coins. Everybody's talking about the newest meme coin. Everybody's talking about the newest NFT. Everyone's talking about DeFi. Why aren't more people talking about Syscoin?
Well, yeah, like I was saying, we've been evolving and evolving, trying to figure out what the ideal infrastructure really is before we go mainstream. Because if you don't have a scalable infrastructure, first of all, we're not a meme coin, so we couldn't just do an ERC20 and just launch and say, hey, we're better than everyone else because we look like a cat or something like that. But we instead focus more on the business because again, we have blockchain foundry there and we have a foundation behind it. We are talking to enterprises and identities and all that stuff. We had an early partnership with Microsoft, with the Decentralized Identity Foundation. That's kind of where a lot of people learned about us. And having the enterprise connections, they were more focused on value and how blockchain can help them. And they're still struggling around that, right? How blockchain can help them because of regulations and all that. So we've learned from all of that, and we've instead of focusing on meme and pumps and dumps and just trying to increase the value, we instead focused on what can we do on our blockchain that could help the bottom line that's missing in Bitcoin, that might be missing in Ethereum, and we fill in a niche and a gap. So, bottom line for the new viewers that are looking at this that really don't know crypto, but they know Bitcoin and Ethereum. Syscoin is Bitcoin plus Ethereum put together in one package. That's essentially what it boils down to. There's a lot of, obviously nuances there, but we got the security of Bitcoin and we got the, from December 6th, we'll have the flexibility of Ethereum, meaning everything that's built on top of Ethereum too, including rollups and layer twos. We just borrow all that, all of that work just plugs right on top.
I'm glad you made that point. We talked about that with some with projects that are going to be the quote unquote Ethereum killers and stuff. And it's just like no matter what, if a project does anything in the Ethereum footsteps, you cannot go wrong right now because it's like worst case scenario, you get to watch them make the mistake first. You get to watch them go through the door. They have a lot of code that's open source, so you literally can just pick apart the things you like. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that is my thing with Ethereum, where I think they may find trouble that they don't keep the best talent on board on the development side and keep that pace going where everything's working out. And even where working EIP 1559 isn't really working, but if they the moment they slip up and make a mistake, a big enough mistake, and that other company says we're going to do everything they did except add that last line of code, it's going to be some problems. So I do like how you're open about looking at some of their stuff. So we do have questions rolling in. I'm going to start throwing you these questions from our warriors. Jams, what's going on, Jams? One of our in-house warriors / hexagons. First question: how do you dispute the environmentalists while maintaining a proof of work network?
Yeah, it's a good question. We are a merge mine with Bitcoin, and so we reuse the work. We are of the mind that the Bitcoin consensus system is not going away. It's more efficient overall from a security perspective than proof of stake. Why that is a very subtle point around staking and staking not having any. You have nothing at stake when you're actually staking your coins. People have to buy the coins, and then in Ethereum too, they're going to be slashing and burning at the same time. With Bitcoin, you have intrinsic externality costs that come with energy, and this cost is inflation resistant. So we're reusing the same work from Bitcoin, and we are not adding any incremental cost on top. So in that way, it's completely green. It's even greener than setting up a proof of stake system.
Mm. Lawrence Sanders, what's going on, Lawrence? So how do you compare to Solana or Matic with staking and swapping?
So Matic is a side chain, and it's a layer 2 to Ethereum Polygon, and that one has validators where people have to stake, and then they basically are rewarded after they create blocks. And all of these smart chains, they're proof of stake. They're all doing the same thing, right? ADA, AVA, Tron, there's about a dozen, right? They're all doing the exact same thing with a slightly different spin. Solana has some interesting optimizations on layer 1, which are interesting that you'd love to borrow that tech if it was done in the right way, I think. I think what they're going to end up doing is becoming a roll-up centric system, just like how Ethereum 2 is. And where we are different a little bit, truly appreciate the optimizations that some of these systems are doing, but we are focused on security. We think that in the upcoming time, next couple of years, maybe 5 years, there's going to be a lot of political and economic uncertainty, as if there isn't already. And you need systems that will survive that. And that's why Bitcoin was created. It wasn't created so we can do a whole bunch of cool stuff on top and the North American market could prosper. It was for onboarding the masses in the third world, but also surviving the crisis that may be impending as it was created in that environment.
Is
So that,
Bradley with you? Bradley, your squad?
sorry?
Is Bradley your team?
Yeah, Bradley's
Okay, there
our
we go.
team.
Let Bradley. I'm like, oh, who's this? How to get the link? How to get the link? You sharing the link while telling me, Jack? No. No, I'm glad you brought it. So a couple of questions I do have to ask before we kind of get into more of these questions. First thing, and this is because of your answer, because of a couple of your answers. You first pointed out about why you guys aren't jumping on the meme train and coin and all that stuff. You building value, which we often talk about here. Then you just talked about why Bitcoin lasted, and you talked about that the value of the security it has, which makes it valuable, which I also agree with. These sound like fundamental Bitcoin maximalist type of talking point. So I have to ask you, what got you into Bitcoin? What's the initial thing into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? Are you still into Bitcoin? What are your thoughts now about Bitcoin? And then how did you get into Syscoin? So the three-prong question I got to give you.
Yeah, those good questions because these are things, there's going to be camps in the future. Like, what camp are you? Are you big block or small block? Are you Bitcoin? Are you smart contract? Are you Ethereum? Are you pro altcoins? Are you pro, couple of coins that may exist at any given time? I think, I got in from a philosophical point of view. I was an engineer for a long period of time, and philosophically, it made a lot of sense because trading in the stock markets and stuff, you definitely get a little bit jaded, and you definitely feel that there's an enemy that's unseen, and you can't point your finger to it. The system is not really working as designed because of the bots and the quant trading and all that stuff that's happening in the banks that they're taking exposure against retail traders. There's just simply no way to get ahead, and the economic system wasn't really actually prospering. There may be GDP increases, but there's no prosperity. It's a very distinct difference. Because of that, I was always looking for something that I can, worked about 15 years in the industry and software before I finally found this as a passion. And I was coming at it from a philosophical point of view. My very first post on Bitcoin Talk was around the deflationary aspect of Bitcoin and how that can survive. And people pointed out, well, commerce and consumer media is a deflationary environment, but people still buy that TV on Boxing Day because they want and they have to. So it was described in that way. I was, from then I started to dig into it deeper and deeper, and I found a viable alternative. Call it a light at the end of the tunnel, where on one end you're seeing a system collapse, and the other end you're seeing a system thrive. And I just, as a developer, I had to dig in. Now, I'm not really a maximalist. I'm more of a value maximalist, I guess. Wherever there's value, I think there's value in Bitcoin as a inherent store of value. It may be like an interbank system. It's not a money system. Money maybe can be derived on the payment channels, but itself is just a gold. It's a gold standard for store value in a court, right? Security. And Ethereum is the gold standard for EVM and smart contracts done in a secure way. And that's why we want to marry those two together. So if you really want to point a finger at maximalism, I would say I'm a both Ethereum EVM and a Bitcoin proof of work Nakamoto consensus maximalist, not particularly interested in calling Bitcoin money or what it is, but the technology behind it. Really value those two more than anything else.
And I fully agree with you as well. I've been saying that often, more often lately. Like, Bitcoin is just value. Like, this is when you strip it all down, it's just something people consider valuable. So, so I'm definitely with you on that. And then, how did you get into Syscoin? Yeah.
Yeah, so around 2014, I really wanted to. I was involved with DevCoin, which is one of the first clones from, there was Namecoin, DevCoin, and DevCoin was doing some cool stuff around, if you're an artist or you're a writer and you write some stuff, you get paid for it through the blog subsidy, right? People vote on it and they pay, you get paid. So I love that concept that you get, it's not just proof of work, but proof of real work, where you actually do a little bit of work and you get paid for it. So as a, in a utopian society, you get paid for what you provide and everyone's on equal footing, right? From there, I was looking to extend that concept into more, how can we do a little bit more than just writing? So that's where I found Syscoin, and I messaged Dan on Bitcoin Talk, and we got along and we started doing some bounties. So I did some bounty work, and it kind of, I can't really describe it. It was more like just like, it's the right thing to do at some point in your work life. You just know that this is the path. I had other opportunities with different projects, but I kind of chose this one just because the way that the team was, and I felt that like the infrastructure that was set up with Syscoin may not be the ideal one, but maybe it can evolve to be a good one, and that's kind of what we've been working on since.
Nice. AJ said, what coding language is Syscoin written in?
Well, it's a protocol, right? So the reference protocol is in C and C++ and assembly, and there's implementations in Go and all these other ones. So the protocol can be written in any language. We wrote a JavaScript wrapper to interface with it. So just plain JavaScript if you want to, as a developer, work with the UTXO layer. And of course, on the EVM, you could just use Web3. So your Web3.js or Ether.js will allow you to work with it. So definitely, it's when you think about protocols, you can write them in any language, but the reference client that we wrote was from Bitcoin is C and C++ because of the speed, efficiencies, and interoperability across different platforms.
So these sound like so Gems and Ashley. It kind of sounds like and Satoshi Slim. They're kind of asking and saying the same question. One was Ashley said you may need a sexier name. Gems, or excuse me, Satoshi Slim and Gems said, where's the marketing department? But then they said, sounds like to me they're selling the infrastructure to enterprises, which could be quite valuable long term. So is that who you're targeting? Are you looking at enterprises and more broader organizations, and, or just retail investors type of deal?
Well, there's no set target. I guess it's more like what Ethereum's target market is. It's the same sort of thing, but we do, from blockchain foundry perspective, we do focus on enterprises exclusively. Mostly, it's where you can build products and realize some revenue for our shareholders. And so, in that light, there are some really cool things that will be eye-popping, coming pretty soon, related to, we're talking about um, compliant DeFi, which is going to be possible in the near future, meaning you can have your smart contracts, your DAOs, your NFTs, your AMM pools, all done in compliant ways, and the SEC would love that, right? So SEC, we've been talking to them a little bit about what we're doing in on-chain compliance, and our next foray with zero knowledge proof rollups will allow us to create products that will do compliant things and STOs and security tokens. It's a $160 trillion market in 2030. That market we can plug right into. We can tell Elon, hey, take your Tesla stock and you can sell it in the Uniswap AMM pool on our compliant DeFi protocol. So that sort of stuff is just not possible on any platform today. And that is where our focus from BCF is. But on the foundation side, it's more like we're building a scalable platform that's secure. It's what Ethereum is, maybe what it ought to have been, but very, very secure with Bitcoin behind it. But we have an EVM, just like how Ethereum is working today with proof of work. And our roadmap is focused on scaling through zero knowledge proof rollups. If Ethereum had seen rollups before it decided to do sharding and proof of stake, it probably would have just decided to stay on proof of work, just because now zero knowledge proofs are showing that they can scale almost infinitely, create a system of systems environment. So target markets on the foundation are anyone who wants to build secure IoT, smart cities, AI, NFTs, DAOs, anything in Ethereum and anything tomorrow, which is going to open up a whole bunch of use cases as we scale up. And the target market on BCF is products, wallets, compliance, these sort of things that will help enterprises get clarity when they're questioning how blockchain can come and help them. They will have, have the backing of the regulators behind it.
And is this what you mean when you're saying that Ethereum virtual machine, you all have your own, you're doing this this network enhanced virtual machine, the Syscoin one, and creating these smart cities? Is this what you're referring to?
Yeah. So our EVM is, what it is Syscoin, and then there's a Go Ethereum client running next to it, and our EVM is secured by the proof of work that happens in Syscoin, which is shared with Bitcoin, right? So everything that is, remember I said Bitcoin plus ETH. What I mean there is everything Bitcoin does, Taproot, Mast, Schnorr signatures, we can apply that on our UTXO layer with assets. So if you have an asset on Syscoin, you could do Taproot on that asset, and that's not possible anywhere else. So that's on the Bitcoin side and the security of it. And then on the EVM side, anything Ethereum can do, zero knowledge proof rollups, optimistic rollups, ERC20s, right on main chain DAOs, NFTs, that's possible as well, right? And we scale up with ZK rollups. So we feel like we can get the millions of transactions happening without increasing the costs. And also, if Bitcoin has a breakthrough, we can tap right into that as well.
All right. We got Drake the Great said, what's more important, security, scalability, or speed?
Well, I think scalability and speed might be the same thing. There's a throughput, how big your tap is and how much water is pouring out, almost the same sort of thing.
Hey, block size versus block.
Block size is different.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, I remember the block debate, and I think they got it right. I think the enterprise is bigger blocks, and the way I view blockchain layer one is it's not a system where you process everyone's transactions. It's a system where if you think it is a court system in real life, we only scale when we invoke the cost of the court if we really need to. So if you're called out by the jurisdiction saying you need to have a hearing, it's because you did something wrong. The court system costs are invoked at that point. The rest of the population doesn't need to hear that. So just like Bitcoin, it's a court system, so you don't need the big blocks. Everything happens off chain, and you only need to invoke the cost when you really need to either dispute something or you want to come back and settle up and maybe go on to layer two some other time.
Okay, let's see. Oh, go ahead.
Ethereum is the same way with ZK rollups now. Layer one is thought of as like the court system where you might be coming back out of layer two to go to a different layer two or to a different blockchain, right? And so right now DeFi is happening on layer ones, Solana, Avalanche, Ethereum, it's all happening on layer one. That's going to soon change. Within about 6 months, most of the DeFi will be happening on layer twos. So layer ones are essentially just court systems. And
when you say DeFi is happening on layer ones like Solana, what do you mean specifically?
Well, in Solana, everything's put on one layer. It's a monolithic design, right? So everything.
I wouldn't call them DeFi though. That's what I was asking.
Oh yeah, well, I mean NFTs. I mean they've gotten some cool NFT stuff happening over there.
Oh, okay, I'll get you like the Solana ones. That makes sense. Let's see. Shankar B said, "Is Syscoin compatible with WASM and Ethereum 2.0? WASM and Ethereum 2.0?"
Yeah, I think eWASM is something that could be possible, especially where you want to. So the reason why EVM and ETH, some of the people have been resistant to WASM is because of the security perspective. It hasn't been formally proven. EVM has been more formally proven. It's taken the secure route of doing things in smart contracts, but it is a little bit slow, right? It's not optimized. eWASM and WASM is a faster approach. It's almost giving you native speeds running in your browser, which is a pretty holy grail. Where I think is interesting to apply that is probably on the rollup side, right? So if you have for example, Matter Labs is working on ZK Sync, right? And ZK Sync compiles down intermediately to the LLVM, which is LLVM is compatible with eWASM and WASM, which means in the future, ZK Sync is a layer 2 protocol, right? Doing zero knowledge proof rollups, but it supports DeFi and supports Web3. So your eWASM will be running on that layer. On layer 1, you want that security and the blanket of the court system making sure that everything is safe. You don't want to introduce too many risks there. And so in the future, maybe you have EWASM there, but really for layer one, we're focusing on making sure everything's secure so it doesn't break.
All right. So I think this may have been already answered a bit because you say you're combining them. But someone said, why didn't you want to just do this with Bitcoin?
Well, the Bitcoin stack is not made, it's inherently made Turing non-complete because there's a lot of small nuances like why Satoshi may have chose not to make it Turing complete. He could have simply made Bitcoin Turing complete and you could have had a virtual machine built on top really easily, right? But it was actively chosen not to because there's a lot of external costs when you start adding Turing completeness. For example, in Bitcoin, everything's UTXO, and doing and each opcode has a known cost. If you add Turing completeness, you sometimes have hidden costs in the consensus that may end up denial of servicing the entire network if you get it wrong. And Ethereum has done a lot of work to make sure that it doesn't have that, and it also chose an accounting model which is easier to deal with. And this is also why ADA is having a lot of problems with UTXO smart contracts, getting that right. The second part is there's a lot of externalities introduced, including MEV. So a lot of people on Twitter today, some of the Bitcoin guys are saying, please, please, please don't build DeFi on Bitcoin because of MEV attacks, and we can't solve that. You can't solve these on blockchains that don't have finality, and that's why Ethereum is doing proof of stake soon. Start adding that finality in. With MEV attacks, you have auctions and people can reorg blocks for profit. And there's an auction system set up externally where there may be $1 billion arbitrage, and then you simply roll that back and someone is on the hook for that. So adding that Turing completeness gives you all of these DeFi capabilities that you don't really want to do on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's sole purpose is just value transfer, me to you, and we're done.
I say the same thing. Bitcoin is just a transfer of value, which is why I know the people in governments around the world are freaking psychotic because they're going crazy about you transferring your own value.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's see. We had another one. All right, so someone's coming after your development. They're saying essentially they think one of the main issues is a slow development cycle. What do you say to that?
I think we've been evolving almost perfectly if you think about it, because we in 2017 we looked at smart contracts, right? We looked at two different distinct ways to try to do it. We had master nodes, and we're like, why can't we use master nodes and then do some sort of cool smart contract stuff on? We looked at trusted execution, so Intel SGX. Can we introduce a novel approach using Intel SGX or hardware that's secure? And then we kind of saw that Intel was not. I think they were coerced by the government to not enable the sort of thing we needed to do, because Intel can just, the government could just say, you guys got to shut this thing feature down, and they can put it in a remote call, and now all the chips are not talking to your system, and you're hooked, right? Your consensus system's broken. We were kind of waiting for zero knowledge proofs to become mature enough, because that was a software solution to the hardware enclave problem, right? A hardware enclave, you can have a chip and everything happens in there as a black box. This zero knowledge proofs is a software version of that. It's a black box that gives you a 1 or 0, yes or no, and you actually have no information leakage out of that, and you can do anything in that black box. I can fill it in with 1 million transactions, have complete confidence that the output of that means that everything's been checked according to the consensus rules. So we kind of had to wait around until that was done. And then until then, we focused on the UTXO layer. We created assets, we created UTXO assets, we streamlined our blockchain, we optimized it so that when we do have Lightning networks, which Bitcoin is doing now, and we add assets to that, that will allow you to go to Starbucks and make a direct value transfer to somebody P2P with almost zero cost. There's no cost of the court there. It's a small, maybe if you're transferring CAD stablecoin to USD stablecoin, there's a transfer of Forex, foreign currency exchange transfer, because you have to hop through an intermediary, but it's still a value transfer that happens off chain. So that, we focus on this, the payment side of things, and the smart contract side of things. We had to kind of wait like you said, wait for the maturity to happen in EVM and the tools to become mature, the hacks to kind of be figured out, the audit systems to be built. And we waited around for that, and we've been kind of diligently working towards that. And then just about a year ago, zero knowledge proof rollups came around, and we went all in from there, and we developed the EVM, and here we are.
I mean, it's so crazy when you see it. And I understand. I mean, it's kind of like Taproot. Everybody's waiting for Taproot. We've been waiting for Taproot for a little while now. When Segwit happened, that was a little wait too. I mean, for people to actually implement, Coinbase didn't implement Segwit until what, 4 or 5 months later, maybe 6 months plus. So I get what you're saying. We say that here too. I mean, developments in this space normally do take at least 2 to 3 years. So with that being said, what is the roadmap looking forward looking like for you all?
So I'm just going to say something kind of controversial now. I think the next year or two, we are going to see some crazy stuff. Like it's going to go, it's going to become exponential from here on. I think the saying is, it was Dan Bonet that said this: every 10x scale, you get 50 to 100x use cases. We're about to introduce, without sacrificing decentralization, right? If you sacrifice decentralization, systems break. Like Solana's blockchain stopped, Avalanche blockchains, the fees are going up, and it may have issues. Tron's blockchain, BSC, they all had issues because they had validated, they sacrificed decentralization a little bit, right? If you don't sacrifice decentralization, it's hard to get that scale. This is where the ZKP stuff comes. It's going to give us 50 to 100x to 1000x scale in the near future, without sacrificing decentralization and without having the developers to have to change the way they work. We're talking about Web3 and Solidity support. So if they've written a smart contract in a DAO and they've forked Olympus before, that same contract can be just seamlessly plugged into the system. Now you've got 50 to 100x gains. What do you think that's going to do on the use case side? It's just going to be, there's going to be an explosion of value. Anyone with zero barrier of entry sitting in Africa with 20 bucks in their pocket can turn that to 10,000 overnight just by coming up with a cool idea and having a small amount of gas to implement a contract and people buy in. It's just going to be crazy. Like we never had this situation before, and this is why we're so excited, is solving scalability with decentralization in mind. The next year or so is going to set the stage for the smart city IoT AI movement that's going to come subsequently.
So just to be clear, you weren't talking about the entire market. You're talking about Syscoin, correct?
I'm talking about the entire market. I think
Okay. Okay.
Ethereum,
Guess with Syscoin specifically, what type of on the roadmap do they have to look forward to as well? Also.
yeah. So we're plugging into what ETH is doing, and so this is all. When that happens, we might actually see that flippening that people call it. I don't think it'll flip Bitcoin long term, but we might actually see something there where a lot of value will come back to ETH. And where we've done our soul searching is the fact that we are not willing to sacrifice decentralization to get some sort of crazy flexibility and security. So we are saying, if you are an Ethereum user and you're conscious of security, like you're a family hedge fund, you got $1 billion and you want to settle somewhere, you're going to say, well, I want to settle on the most secure ledger, the secure court, that in the future I can come back in 100 years and know for certain that hasn't been, there's been no issues with that. And so your secure settlement is just like Ethereum, but you'll get the secure Bitcoin-based security behind it by settling on our system. And with the cool ZKP stuff coming, users won't even know what chain they're on. They're going to be interacting across blockchains, most likely the ones that offer rollups. You're going to be on rollups on many chains. Even liquidity is going to be split across all layer twos, and you're not even going to know where you are, but you can decide where you want to settle. And that's where we come in.
Let's see. Ashley says smart city is virtual.
There'll be metaverse. There'll be physical smart cities as well. Like IoT devices have a lot of trust in the cloud right now and how to communicate. The digital identity layer is centralized. There's no real sovereign digital identity that's done properly. That's been using Hyperledger to date. And once we have the ability to scale up 100x, we can start doing a digital identity system right on the public permissionless chain. So we're talking about interoperable identity across the world. So IoT device in Dubai can communicate with IoT device in Vancouver and not have to rely on an intermediary to tell it who you are, how to communicate.
Let's see, Shankir, thank you for this. I heard Syscoin uses UTXO. Can Syscoin handle concurrency better than Cardano? That was viral a week before Cardano's smart contract mainnet rollout.
UTXO is just a concept, so it can handle the same sort of things that you're doing, but we are on our UTXO layer, we're focused only on payments. We're not doing the smart contract complexity that they're trying to do. We think validity proofs is a smarter way to scale up smart contracts. So we separate the two. It's in software speak, it's called separation of concerns, right? You want to separate the concerns so they don't mingle and mix with each other and create, security risks. And so instead of us trying to develop everything on the Bitcoin model and saying, let's recreate the wheel and now introduce all these complexities, try to do an EVM on that. That's not right. There's 1,000, 10,000 developers working on this side. You want to tap into that. So we separated them. So you don't want to actually do smart contracts with UTXO. You want to use validity proofs instead to scale up the accounting model to give you that 50 to 100x gain without sacrificing anything. Like there's no complexity there.
All right. Let's see, Jams. They're talking about swapping regulation for security. One of the big things people were, I guess, talking about in the comments and wondering is just how much involved. So for you all, how much involvement have you all had with the SEC? Have you had to work with them for compliancy and all that stuff? And what's the reception you see from enterprise and retail?
Yeah, that might be on the compliance side, right? So about 2 years ago, we had a call with someone in the Philippines, and they said, "Wouldn't it be cool if you could stop a transaction on the blockchain? Because then all these remittance use cases would open up, and XRP and some of these other blockchains there, they were on Stellar, and Stellar has lease lines or trust lines, and they're kind of it's you're adding a lot of data, and it's kind of weird the way they're trying to do it. Like, wouldn't it be possible just to set up your asset and have it notarized by somebody, and now every transaction could be gated?" So that was a start of our compliance foray in public permissionless blockchain. And where that's going now is, I've described the ZK rollups, right? And we plan to run a compliant ZK rollup, which would mean that it's in our cloud, and we actually have the backend checks happening on KYC, AML, all of the stuff that is needed to check to make sure things are compliant. So now, if we have a launch pad, we'd have both regular token offerings, but also security token offerings you can do. And security token offerings would be put on the compliant rollup. All the DeFi, NFTs, anything that you think about in Ethereum is going to be possible there. And when we spoke to the SEC, we were showcasing what we were doing on the UTXO layer, which was just stopping transactions on value transfers, right? If I transfer from me to you, and this is a security token, we want to know that the KYC has been checked, or there's no transfer restrictions happening, and it's opt-in, right? It's not for regular public DeFi, and they love that, right? There was no negative feedback, which is the best kind of feedback you can get from the SEC. The next step was to convert this into a DeFi, an EVM approach, and that's what we're doing now, and having the backend stuff plug in. It's a lot of work to figure out all the legal rules and templates you need to plug in, and then build the roll-up stuff on top. But the roll-up stuff is being done by other people. We're just going to plug that right in. We're focused on the back end there, and that's called Peregrine, right? And that is going to enable that. That in itself is like a holy grail use case, right? Because as you know, with FATF coming out and SEC releasing guidelines around permission DeFi, and where they're really going to get people is when they try to barter with this stuff. They take their stablecoin, they try to spend it. The merchant is going to say, "I can't accept this unless the source of check is done." Then you're going to be on custody providers, and we really don't like custodial providers because of all the risks. SEC doesn't like custodial providers. They want you to have ATS licenses and all these broker dealer licenses in order for you to operate, and every state has different licenses. So it's crazy to become a custodial provider in the crypto landscape. And what we're doing,
Yeah, we always talk about that here. Like they literally, and it's Wednesday morning. Hey guys, it's illegal. Like, wait, what? Yeah, it's illegal. We're seeing jail for this. So yeah, we get it.
That's all because of custody, right? If you remove custody from the picture, which we're doing with this roll-up stuff, we don't actually control anyone's money. All we're saying is it allowed or not allowed to go through based on transfer rules. So that's how a transfer agent works. A transfer agent in a security offering is just basically, can this transfer happen? Can this transaction happen? But not custody, which is where all the crazy licenses happen. And you only get one KYC and you're in and you're doing DeFi at that point. So that's what we're trying to do. And now next step show them, and potentially could lead to really big things because it will solve all their questions. If you're doing compliant DeFi, they'll say, well, you can use this system if you want to do anything compliant or regulated.
I got to be honest. Before I let you go, you are exactly. So I knew I was going to get the question, which is why I had to ask you. The question is coming in as I'm saying it. Compliant DeFi, permission DeFi, like those aren't words we know here. So you got to tell us, like, how is that possible? How? Yeah, unless we're talking about a different definition.
It's the same definition, but it's possible because in typical, how polymath and some of these other ones that you have somebody potentially taking custody of funds. So like Fireblocks, for example, you have to onboard with them. They throw you into their algorithm. They control you. They can decide if you can exit or not. They have to by legal definition, right? But now with some of this new stuff with zero knowledge proof rollups, we can do this stuff because now you going in from layer one like Ethereum onto layer two, and in layer two we are the guys running the back end there, right? In typical layer twos, you can have decentralized sequencers, so you have kind of like nodes that will process transactions. In this case, it would be our cloud, right? Blockchain Foundry creates a product, it's our cloud, but what we can't do is steal funds. And that's the distinction. In the custodial sense, you can lock people out and take their funds and refund people. And in this case, all we're doing is saying a transaction is valid or not valid, and we will process this. And the users can always exit, right? If they've entered from layer one, you can always you have censorship resistant, you can always exit. But if you want to transact in the system, you have to comply by our rules, and our backend will check that. Every transaction that happens, we will do a backend database check, make sure KYC AML is done, any transfer restrictions, and that's an opt-in solution. So if you really, as a business, you want to do DeFi, but you're scared because regulations haven't happened and there's a whole bunch of transfer rules you need to implement, or it's a security offering, you don't have a solution today for DeFi. And so that's what this is. We would ensure the checks are done and then let you go have fun and do DeFi and DAOs and NFTs with your Tesla stock or any USD regulated stablecoin.
It definitely, I can definitely see the appeal from the enterprise side on that, especially. I can see how they would definitely want to utilize that. All right, so anything else, any messages you want to add before we let you go here, Jack? I appreciate you being here today. Thanks for all the crypto warriors and the questions you asked as well. We got somebody saying it may be a Coinbase listing come as well, so we'll see if that happens. But any other comments you have or messages you want to leave us with, Jack?
Yeah, no, I think we're getting the snowball tightly packed right now. We're trying to roll it off, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And we've kind of waited for this moment since probably 2014. We've been building up and building up and building up, and we've avoided trying to get out there in everyone's face before because we didn't have the platform. Once people start using it, we were not a meme, so we can't just say just trust us. Once we have something out there, it's like, okay, well, how do we develop on this? How do we create value? We didn't have that, and now we're getting to a point where you have the scalable systems being developed and we're plugging right into the ETH ecosystem and the Bitcoin ecosystem. So it's all coming together kind of at the right moment, at the right time. I don't want to predict the future or anything, but I think, in the long run, there will be a handful of blockchains that are really useful. And most of the other ones will be on these handful of blockchains as layer two systems. So even something like Solana Avalanche, they can even create consensus systems that run off of layer two and still retain their token models. So that's the way I see it unfolding. You need the critical layer ones, and we are hopefully one of the critical layer ones, and then all of the rest of the value gets built on top.
Sounds good. Again, thanks for being here, Jack Sidhu. Again, foundation president and lead core developer of the Syscoin platform. If you all are interested in that, you can check it out at syscoin.org. Of course, do your own research. But again, make sure you smash that like and share, and we will see you all next time with some more crypto news. Hopefully we have some new updates from Syscoin next time.